Hey guys, I'm Kat and I'm back and talk about Game of Thrones. I already started this video and apparently it was way too long, so I'm going to try to shorten up my ideas. First of all, I want to give a shout out really to Game of Thrones Academy because they put me up to this idea and they really gave me an idea about talking about this subject that we're going to talk about next. And essentially, what this video is about is if you have a favorite character and you want that character to live at the end of this series, then you should not root for them to be Azor Ahai. And why is that? Well, first let's talk about Azor Ahai in Westeros history. So he comes and first of all, he's in Yeti and he drives the White Walkers back and they build a bunch of fortresses, and then he comes to Westeros and then he helps drive the others back, and again the wall's built, and then what happens to Azor Ahai? Well, in their history he just disappears, right? Nobody says what happens to Azor Ahai. He comes, he helps, and he's gone. But what we know is in real life bad things happen to messianic messengers. So, the dudes over at Game of Thrones Academy were talking about the concept of Azor Ahai as the Messiah, and that they believe that the Azor Ahai, like all the Messiahs, will be actually nobody, or be a bunch of different people, and that, maybe someday when the legends are written, they're, conglomerated, amalgamated into one person that represents Azor Ahai. But we know that historically in our myths and legends, and even in our real history, people who are considered messiahs or messianic figures do not have a good ending. So I'll talk about a couple right now. The first ones that come to my mind are all biblical right off the bat. So first is Moses. So Moses helps the Jews escape slavery out of Egypt. There's a great exodus. They go into the desert, and on their way to Canaan, which is the promised land, they pause and Moses goes up in the mountains to receive the Ten Commandments. But when Moses returns, he finds that the people had become scared and confused and went back to their paganistic ways, and they'd even made a golden calf with a moon over its head, and were worshiping that as God. And Moses became really angry and he smashed the Ten Commandments, and then he caused a bunch of the ringleaders they melted down this golden calf and he poured the gold into the mouths of these fools, basically. And then God got essentially mad. Moses went up on the mountain, got the Ten Commandments again, and God was angry and said to him that now his people were going to wander for 40 years in the desert, and that they would eventually get to Canaan or the Promised Land. But when they did, Moses would not get there with him, and he did not. So when they got to the River Jordan, he looked up from the top of the mountain, looked over the River Jordan, and saw the Promised Land, and then he died. He did not get there. Another kind of messianic messenger was Ezekiel. So Ezekiel was a prophet, and he went around and he was talking about the potential coming of the Messiah, things that need to be done. People did not like him. They threatened to kill him and stone him, even though he was giving them true messages. And at the end, he escaped by jumping in a fiery chariot and ascending into heaven via this chariot. Probably heard that story in some other religions as well. Other messianic messenger, John the Baptist. So John the Baptist is going around saying, hey, the Messiah is coming. Come to the river and let me baptize you, the River Jordan. And he's baptizing people. And in fact, Jesus comes. And John the Baptist recognizes him, even though Jesus doesn't say anything, although they're supposed to be cousins in some history and or something of that nature. And so he baptizes Jesus. Well, he's spreading this message, and the king of the Jews, or king of Israel, hears about John the Baptist, and he sees him as a rebel and a rabble-rouser, and so he orders him to be captured. And then Salome does her little dance, and he says, what do you want as a gift for your awesomeness? And she says, John the Baptist's head. So off with John the Baptist's head, served on a silver platter. And of course, then there's Jesus. So we know what happens to Jesus. Jesus, same thing. He's going around spreading his message. And just like what is being prophesied in the Westerosi Game of Thrones history, is that Jesus is betrayed. The dude would have to come and mow the damn lawn right while I'm talking about this. But so Jesus is betrayed, and he's captured, and he's put on trial before Pontius Pilate, and a bunch of other things happen. But essentially, he gets nailed to the cross, and he dies. Now he does go in the tomb, and he rises, and that's Christian theology. There's some other spin-offs of that says that Jesus didn't actually die, or that when he came out of the tomb that he did not ascend into heaven, but he actually went out around the world to spread his message. And there's some theories about that he's the embodiment of Buddha, or Buddha was Jesus's teacher, depending on which one you want to claim as first. And the Mormons, of course, believe that Jesus went to America and spread his message amongst the natives. But in any event, he was no longer in Jerusalem. Right? So the Messiah did not end up being in Jerusalem. He was either dead or gone. Other real-life messianic figures that had bad endings, Abraham Lincoln. So there's a lot of people who are talking about Daenerys, the emancipator, Misa. She freed the slaves. She's like Abraham Lincoln. And if everybody knows, when everybody talked about it, nobody said anything about what happened to Abraham Lincoln at the end. So the war's almost over. He's freed the slaves. There's just mop-up action going on, and everybody's pretty sure, the Union's won. And he goes to the theater. He's watching this play, and John Wilkes Booth comes up behind him and, boom, shoots him in the head. The emancipator's gone. And all the things that the emancipator would have done, that he had plans in order to reconstruct the South and ensure true freedom for the freed slaves and their political freedom, as well as their physical freedom. Those things didn't actually come to pass. Although right after the Civil War, slaves were actively in the political life and had taken office, very quickly Jim Crow came about, and they were suppressed again. And although they were free in a way, they were segregated, and they were denied their basic rights as a free person. And all that Reconstruction stuff didn't really happen. And then 100 years later, the next messianic figure that I can think of that was a good messianic figure that ended in a bad way was Martin Luther King Jr. So 100 years later, the civil rights movement comes, and finally, the black people are getting their civil rights. People are talking about them getting the vote, and actually all the things that should have happened after the great emancipator set them free. Here's Martin Luther King Jr., and one night he's giving a speech about that he could see the promised land, and it's right there. But he says, I might not get there with you, but you will get there. And of course, the next day he's standing on a balcony in Memphis, and boom, he is assassinated. So bad endings for even good messianic figures. There are also some bad messianic figures that come to mind who everybody thinks started out good, and then, at the end of the time, crash and burn, did really terrible things. So the big one that should be in everybody's mind when they think about Daenerys, for instance, is Adolf Hitler. So Germany's in a super bad way, and they're poor, they're humongous unemployment, there's chaos everywhere, and Adolf Hitler comes to power with this message about how he's going to make Germany great again. And he starts rebuilding the army, and he puts people to work, and he builds these roads, and industry is kicking off. So everybody's thinking, oh, this is awesome. The German mark actually starts, gaining some value. And then dude invades Poland. and it's pretty much downhill from there. So at the same time, he was doing the Holocaust, so the final solution for the Jews. He's killing off not just Jews, he kills 6 million of those, but he also kills in the Holocaust, just straight out murdering people, 4 million other people, the Roman gypsies, Slavs, and in other countries. So, and then at the end of the day, so the man who was going to create the 3,000-year Reich was huddled in a bunker as all the other forces came after him, and he blew his brains out. So think about that when you're thinking about who Azor Ahai is, or who the messianic figure is, or even if it's multiples, as the guys at Game of Thrones Academy suggest. It's not a good thing to be Azor Ahai, because at the end of the day, you're going to be betrayed. Which reminds me, the prophecies for Dani. So her prophecies were in the prophecies of 3. Kind of reminded me about Peter denying Jesus 3 times before the cock crows. So Dani has these 3 prophecies. She's going to have 3 fires. She's going to have 3 betrayals. 2 have already happened, if everything is correct, and the last one will be a betrayal for love. And so I think that indicates that Daenerys will go into sort of messianic things. She's already freed the slaves. She's gathered the Dothraki. They're going to sweep across Essos and, create a new age, destroy. She's the great destroyer. She's Shiva, the great destroyer, and new things will be created. Maybe the Dothraki, probably they don't get to Westeros, because that doesn't happen in real history either. The Mongols never get that far, but she might end up going, and she and her dragon with the other 2, the dragon must have 3 heads. There's 3 again. She might end up going, and then when she's done, she may insist on doing something or being something that the Westerosi people at that time are just not going to accept. Maybe she has good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, by the way, if you see the other videos. And I believe that somebody, out of love for the people, or an individual that she might end up sacrificing, will in fact betray her and end up either killing her or helping her be killed. And another last thought on that is that Daenerys was born in fire, so she will probably die in fire. So if you want your character, you got a favorite character, you want them to live at the end of this Game of Thrones series, do not root for them to be Azor Ahai. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys later.